To waste our lives would be a sin.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, we are certainly living in eventful times, and I am just going to very briefly touch upon one or two of the major events before moving on to the really juicy stuff. Today I have some pretty juiciful, deliciously juiciful information for you about how some people have been using smoke and mirrors and working the financial system, and how it's rebounding adversely upon them in some ways, but it has facilitated them in others. But first of all, we're going to just touch upon the fact that yesterday the King and Queen opened Parliament, the state opening of Parliament. And the new government's King's speech laid out their agenda pretty clearly. Now, I noted with great pleasure that the Prime Minister asserted that he intends to represent the interests of working people. Well, being a member of the working classes myself, I happen to think that working people should always be properly represented by their governments. I prefer when a government represents the interests of those who work over those who leech and those who don't work. I mean, I've always thought it was massively unjust that I could be up at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning working, while other people derive the benefit of my labour by never working. And I'm not alone in thinking that. Whether it is white van man, which used to be so despised by a certain wing of the party, the Labour Party, because they seem to have contempt for the British working classes working. I suppose because that didn't guarantee the vote, but those who didn't work would be guaranteed to vote. Well, that's at least reassuring that Keir Starmer believes that the interests of people who work should be protected. I'm not sure that his programme isn't a bit muddled. Some things I actually agreed with. For instance, he's going to be nationalising the trains. Now, it has to be said that the trains in this country are an unmitigated disaster at the moment, especially the Southern Line, which has been used by the unions to stuck and stiff the people who are using the trains. So I actually am in favour of anybody who's going to get the trains to work, and actually to work on time as well. Let's see if that happens or if it's going to be worse, because usually nationalisation doesn't always result in better service. It sometimes results in worse, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They aim to grow the economy, which is good. The economy needs to be grown. Liz Truss wanted to grow the economy. Some people said she did it disastrously. Other people said that she was the victim of a coup. Well, if the Labour government wants to grow the economy, let's hope they do. Being friendly, user-friendly, to those who make money will be very helpful. But I'm not sure that handing more power to the unions is actually going to be the answer. I think it will result in more strife, more strikes, more perpetual class warfare at the expense of the working people of this country. But let's wait and see. They also are going to be encouraging the building of millions of homes which are needed, and I think that's to the good. What will be very interesting is to see where are they going to get the builders from. There's a dearth of builders in this country at the moment. Where are they going to get them from? Hopefully, countries or places that encourage work as opposed to encourage benefits. They are also going to be beefing up the rights of tenants, which, personally speaking, I think is dangerous, because Mrs. Thatcher, and I also remember from my days at school in New York when you had rent controls, which were wonderful if you could get a rent-controlled apartment. But for the landlords, absolutely disastrous. And are landlords in the business of making money, or are they in the business of subsidizing people who want to leech from them? Now, I had a very unpleasant experience with a crook who used the name Rothschild, and I think she owes us about $750,000 at this point, with interest included. And that was with the beefed up laws, which they are then going to try to hopefully dilute so that tenants have more rights. Well, if it's the right to keep pets and they're going to do it well, I'm all in favor of that. But if it's the right to stay in a place to which they should have no right, I'm not in favor of that. So let's see what happens. They're also going to be abolishing the hereditaries in the Lords. Well, that's just clear class politicking, because the hereditaries in the Lords are representative of the old order, and therefore they need to go. That's the message there. So, having said all of that, let's now plunge into what Caroline Rose Cholmondeley says. As far as I am concerned, William also got the wife he earned as well as deserved. I thought I'd mention that because it's so true. Harry also got the wife he deserved as well as the wife he earned. Now, Caroline Rose Cholmondeley doesn't say that, but I'm saying it, because we're going to discover in a few minutes what's evidently going on there. Karen Buzan says, he said he wet his pants, he was so nervous to meet her. Pathetic, eh? He should now be soiling, but she uses another word that is a mix-up of this, a four-letter word, so we'll use soiling. He should now be soiling his pants, thinking about how he will get rid of her with the least amount of damage as possible. Well, somebody in the know told me that they predict confidently that there will be a divorce. I am not so confident, But this is somebody who is very much in the know and who is convinced there will be a divorce. When, of course, is open to question. But with what is going on behind the scenes, who knows? But I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not predicting trends. I'm not predicting what might or will happen. I'm sticking to what is happening or has happened. Vicky Jacobs says, maybe he will realize Meghan led him into this mess. Obviously, he knew what he was doing was the wrong thing. Panic attacks backstage. And since when have Meghan and Harry ever followed royal protocol? I hope more and more people wake up to these grifters. Unfortunately, they have deep ties to corruption. So no matter what they do, they will never completely disappear. Well, of course they're not going to disappear unless they're made to disappear. And that would be rather too radical a solution for any decent person to want. However, as I just said, the news from on high is a prediction from somebody in the know that there will be a divorce. Harry is, according to this person, very disillusioned with Meghan and with the way everything has rebounded adversely upon him. There are also significant financial concerns. Their earnings seem to have been about $6 million. Or to rephrase that, I think the sum that they have available seems to be about $6 million. We're going to get to the finances in a while because my financial genius has been investigating and coming up with some really interesting stuff, because he has been mining for informational gold, and he has come up with the way Meghan and Harry have been using smoke and mirrors and the loopholes within that the US government has created for privileged people, very rich people, to use charities to hang on to their money while taking advantage of the various schemes that the government itself has put into place that deprives the government itself of the taxes it would normally receive as they being Harry and Meghan and other people like them, hide behind legal tax avoidance measures. Harry cannot, no matter what happens, come back to this country before the 6th of April 2026 to live without being fully liable for every penny he has earned to the British taxman. And he's not going to be able to use charity the way they have been using in the United States. We don't have the state of Delaware, and our charity commissioners are not as straight as a corkscrew, and our charity laws are not so convoluted the way American Delaware entities and laws and institutions are, which allow rich people to actually screw the government and therefore screw the other taxpayers, who then have to assume the tax burden that they, the rich and privileged, should be paying. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to plunge in with what my financial genius has been telling me. Now, I'm no financial whiz kid, I've got to tell you. So you're going to have to bear with me. I am going to read out what he said. I'm going to come to wrap up his conclusions insofar as I understood them. Because to me, speaking about money and stuff like that is almost like speaking Dutch. Sorry, it is. Well, first of all, Harry cannot come back to this country to live until at least the 6th of April 2026. If he comes back before then, he becomes liable for English taxes on every penny he has earned. Now, I have been doing some investigating myself, and the conclusions that I have arrived at as a result of speaking to people is that Harry has earned about $6 million, thereabouts, from his book Spare. It has cost Penguin Random House, a lot of money because of the way they went about assuring it being a paper success. Because at no time did it sell for full recommended retail price. It was always at a 50% discount and sometimes at 100% discount. But Harry's publishing contract and his advance against sales, and then his royalties from sales, even though Penguin Random House was bleeding money left, right, and centre as a result of the way they ensured this book was a success, meant that they're in financial trouble, but he emerges with something on the order of $6 million. So right there, he'd be liable for that in British tax. In America, he and Meghan, and she's very clever. This is not his setup. This is her setup with her people. They have created, I think it's 11 or 12 different enterprises, entities, corporations, charities, whatever, however you want to describe them, in Delaware, which is effectively a tax haven in the United States of America. And Harry, of course, has taken full advantage of it. However, if he comes back before, he becomes liable in Britain for everything that is being sheltered at the moment in the United States. Now, I've made notes, and he would have to pay tax in the United Kingdom for 2024-2025 rates. So he would be walloped by over 40%, at least 40%. Jeremy Hunt, evidently, when the Conservative changed the double taxation laws with regards to charities in 2023. So that's a problem for their Harry if he wants to come back here. He wouldn't be able in England to use Archewell Foundation or any of the charitable wheezes to which they have been prone in the United States. So right there's a problem. But what have they done? This is what they have done to shield their money. There is evidently something called the Fidelity Charitable, which is an entity, American 501c3 public charities, helps donors give money to the charity of their choice and to get an immediate tax write-off before a cent of that money is actually given to a third party or even a connected party charity. Fidelity Charitable boasts that it has investment funds into which the donor's money can go, so that it grows tax-free by being invested in the stocks and bonds markets, for example. The mechanism works like this. I, the donor, set up my own account within Fidelity Charitable. I pay, for instance, $1 million into it and get a top rate personal tax deduction for doing so. So without actually spending a penny, I've right there saved a whole load of money. In the UK, if you did that, it would be worth $450,000. So my net donation cost would actually be $550,000. If I then decide not to transfer to any charity any money from my Fidelity Charitable account for a year, and in that year my $1 million has grown to $1.05, for example, I can then give the 1.05 million less Fidelity Charitable's own fees and charges away. I decide to give that $1 million to a group of companies which I own, which includes my very own 501c3 entity, in other words, Archewell. I use my Fidelity Charitable app on my phone to move 500,000 into my commercial company and another 500,000 into my 501c3 entity, in other words, my supposed charity. Fidelity records that I have given away $1 million. My 501c3 entity, in other words, Archewell, for instance, records in its public filings that it has received an anonymous donation of $500,000. The other 500,000 vanishes into my web of companies set up in Delaware. So I have got myself a net tax profit of $450,000, and I can spend $500,000 exactly as I wish, and within the bounds of US tax law, on whatever I want. Travel, PR, etc., etc. If I'm a celebrity or an author, well, my goodness, that necklace in Van Cleef and Arpels that I saw, I think I'll have that. That's cheap at the price. It's a really good investment. It's $425,000. Yeah, and I'll wear it once somewhere, and then it's allowed. And am I not clever? So let me continue. This is what the Harkles have done. I can also move money around just as I wish. In fact, I don't even need to move the money into my 501c3 entity until I want to pay it out. I just leave it to accumulate profits with Fidelity Charitable, which I can then shuffle into my commercial ventures where it will vanish on paying for my business, in quotation marks, expenses. I am so effectively what my financial genius has told me Harry and Meghan have done is they have been moving around money, and they have sheltered their earnings, primarily his earnings. I mean, she's earned something as well, but nothing like what he's earned. And that money is being shuffled around. That is why Archewell's tax returns showed that they earned interest on a totality for the last filed tax year on a sum of $222,000, notwithstanding the fact that they laid claim to having access to millions. Very sophisticated, very interesting, very resourceful. You have to actually give credit where it is due. Meghan has worked so hard. All that vertical climbing, and all the effort she has had to put into it. All that effort. H, I love you so much. Gordon. Gordon. H has given me a target on my back. One tear left eye. Well, you can't accuse her of not taking advantage of every loophole. And let's see if they have taken advantage of loopholes that didn't exist. I hope they haven't for their sake in the United States of America with Uncle Sam, because they might discover that the American tax authorities are a lot less gentle, especially if there becomes a change of regime in the United States, than the British courts have proven themselves to be. So, Princess of Archetypes says, Harry and Meghan's marriage in trouble? Nah, I'd never believe that. Laugh out loud. Well, believe it or not, evidently it is in big trouble. Harry has evidently reached, if not exactly a breaking point, a point of recognition he doesn't like, but we'll get there in a moment. He doesn't like what he's been subjected to. Remember, Harry was protected for most of his life. Harry had a cushy number. Harry only had good press, except on the few occasions that he invited bad press. Ganja wasn't legal in England. No, it wasn't. But can you imagine, Doria? They accused me of being a pothead. I'm not a pothead. I'm not even addicted to it. I just like it. And it connects me to myself. It's medicine. Judith says, fascinating show, Lady C. Your news at the end was very interesting, though I can't help thinking that it might be almost impossible for Harry to leave this admittedly supremely unhealthy marriage because of his various addictions that are enabled 24/7 by Meghan and her mother. Doria, that was superb weed. It's legal in California, and Doria is a well-known pothead as well. Don't take my word for it. Ask those who've known her from before Meghan's lifetime. He admits that Meghan controls the household and makes all the decisions, meaning he does nothing much. And so what is his daily life like? Actually, he walks the dogs, plays with the kids, eats hamburgers and expensive steak, plays computer games, swims in the pool, surfs at the beach, plays polo, and most importantly for him, smokes pot daily. Nothing beats weed. Well, something else does, but I've not been getting much of that lately. Something he has admitted to in print and interviews. It's legal in California, unlike Britain, of course. And don't forget the increasingly rare, I imagine, roast chicken. Oh, nothing like a roast chicken. And I'm sure that oven has packed up quite some time ago. Well, maybe occasionally put into use. After all, variable reinforcement being what it is. And don't forget the increasingly rare, I imagine, roast chicken. Would you agree that someone with his mental health issues and sense of entitlement would struggle to even contemplate leaving this hedonistic fantasy lifestyle behind? Well, he doesn't have to leave it behind. He can export it to the United Kingdom. Even when he was a working royal, surrounded by protection officers, nobody actually did anything to implement and enforce the laws where drugs were concerned and where he was concerned. He was allowed to indulge as much as he wanted and would still be able to indulge as much as he wanted. So, hedonistic lifestyle. Harry's not going to be a working royal again. He will have enforced hedonism whether he wants it or not. You know, my understanding is that Harry has actually cracked under the pressure of failure, the pressure of having gone from being loved and revered to now despised, and he's made the connection. All roads don't lead to Rome. All roads lead to Meghan. Does he need all that unnecessary sunshine and luxury, as I used to put it about living in Jamaica? No, he doesn't. He'll have more luxury but less sunshine in Britain. But he can go to Botswana. He can go somewhere in Africa and work, maybe, for African parks. That's not such a bad idea. But at the moment, he's isolated. He's cut off from virtually everyone and everything that was ever once important to him. Hope and expectation have been replaced by failure and condemnation. And evidently, Harry is now totally aware of the fact that Meghan sold him a whole load of snake oil. And it's not magicking anything. On the contrary, it's giving him an itch, a mid-scabies style itch. Ooh. Well, she promised him nirvana, but she's taken him to hell. And evidently, he doesn't like the temperature. That's the word at the moment from on high. Let's see what happens there. Joy Dixon says, Lady C, hello from New Zealand. Hello from Castle Goring, Joy Dixon. Harry looked dreadful at the faux award. He really is toast. He needs for his own sanity to get out of that marriage. Meghan Markle will have everything tied up so tight he will have to spend a fortune on lawyers. They live in the USA. Lily was born there. I bet Archie is now a USA citizen. Of course he is. He was registered with the American Embassy. He's automatically a US citizen. Harry is not. Goodbye. The kids stay here as foes. The company that does and that has been, as does the companies that have been set up. It says foes, sorry, it does. Some investigations need to be done to see who the principal in those companies is. Also bank accounts, lawyers and accountants. The USA has some very aggressive laws to look after their US citizens and particularly their females with children. Well, actually, Joy Dixon, that's right, and it's also not right. There is the Hague Convention, but I have checked into this, and there are constraints imposed by their residency. And of course, she has set things up in such a way that she will, Rachel Zane-like, go after protecting her earnings. Because remember, Meghan's worked hard for those earnings. And having sacrificed so much for them, she's absolutely going to hang on to them for all it's worth. But is she going to be able to? That's the question. Because she doesn't necessarily have to prevail to the extent that she might have anticipated and hoped and would have expected when setting things up. California law means that he, as a Briton, would have the right to bring his children back to the United Kingdom for visits. And she would have a very hard time proving anything to the contrary. The fact that he's the king's son will certainly help him a lot more than it will help her, because, you know, Harry's revelations about himself haven't included his revelations about Meghan. She's been very careful to encourage him to reveal all about himself while revealing nothing about herself. But she knows, and I know, and I would imagine you ought to know, that everybody has secrets, and Megsy baby is definitely right in there with everybody else. Let's leave it at that. Also, there simply isn't the degree of wealth that people seem to think there is. It's all smoke and mirrors. Will it happen? I have my reservations about Meghan leaping except onto a billionaire's yacht. Maybe 325 feet, 4 decks, helipad, swimming pool. And then she'll be able to wear her Panama hat and protect that lily white skin, and she won't need to brown up anymore. Gosh, isn't that going to be liberating? Oh, and imagine the money she's going to save on bronzer. Oh no, Tad says, about leaving early from functions being a royal protocol. Well, I have trouble believing that, as it is universally considered rude unless it's an emergency. But I seem to remember a royal garden party that Harry and Meghan attended some years ago. 10 minutes in, she was heard saying to Harry, "Harry, I'm bored. Everyone has seen us. Let's go." Harry sheepishly told her it was not a thing to do. Do their spin doctors take us for fools? Well, oh no, Tad, you might not remember it, but I'm the person who actually is the one who, whence that story originated. On the Wednesday after their wedding, which was on the Saturday, I was at the house of a very grand, well-connected friend of mine having dinner, and what Meghan had said the day before was under discussion. I'm the person who repeated. I think it was after 15 minutes, and she said something along the lines of, "Oh, Harry, this is boring, let's go. Oh, so everybody's seen us, it's time to leave." And of course, in those days, I'm sure she was going to make absolutely sure that it was well worth Harry's while that they would depart so that they could be in private together. Yeah, track record, par for the course. Well, Meghan has been accused at the Tillman Awards of having tried to accompany Harry onto the stage, and that he shrugged her off. That tends to suggest that the stories about Harry having meltdowns and Harry being disillusioned and Harry having seen the light, that everything that Meghan has assured him would be nirvana has turned out to be hell. But don't for a minute think that that departure early wasn't pre-planned, because it was. She made sure that she screwed things up enough while speaking to Serena Williams' husband and giving him a huge hug. And you notice their daughter was... and Venus and Serena's mother also, as well as Venus, were... And then she spoke to one or two other people as well on the way out. Absolute end in rudeness. I mean, somebody's on the stage performing, and you don't sneak out, you sashay out. And do notice me. I'm unforgettable. And just in case you forget about me, I'm gonna rub your nose in how unforgettable I am. Unforgettable. Honestly. Meghan can't help but lust after the spotlight at all times. But she knew that the one spotlight she didn't want shining brightly on them was the cameras catching them being booed. And that's why they had to leave early. That was always on the cards, always. They arrived late and they left early. Had she had any sense of decorum or civility, she would have left in a break. They would have snuck out. Everybody has had to sneak out of a theatre at one time or another. But you don't. I have arisen and I am departing. I'm so elegant. Holly Eggert says, have you watched the YouTube movie titled Elizabeth at 90? A marvellous home movie from the family archives of the late Queen that I highly recommend. I haven't watched it. I have to think that Prince Harry, who is part of this movie as narrator with William, must be so grieved to have lost all of these family traditions that are recalled in the family movies of his family growing up. He has given everything up for Meghan to live in America, far away from his home of origin, and far away from all of the traditions and delightful relationships that he experienced as a young child growing up at Windsor with Queen Elizabeth, his grandmother. I have to think that he thinks about this a lot and someday will return to his home. What do you think, Lady C? How would he segue back in? Well, Meghan convinced him that everything good was bad and that all protection was actually restriction and that all positivity was negativity, and that he was not free and protected to do as he pleased within limits, but that he was a prisoner. And she convinced somebody to whom money never ever mattered that money was something he should lust after and upon whose altar he should worship the god Mammon. Yes, obviously he misses his friends. That has been established for some time. I said about 2 years ago, that, or a year and a half, however long ago it was, I don't remember now, time being what it is at my age, it's not the same as when I was younger, but that he has missed his old life, he has missed his old friends, he tried to re-establish contact, and a lot of them didn't want to know. Of course they didn't want to know. But will they want to know if there is a divorce? They would certainly be more willing to receive him and to resume the shell of the former friendship. But will he ever be trusted again? No. He will be trusted as long as with the proviso that he can't really be trusted. So it's not trust at all. But will he be let back in? If he left Meghan, I don't think he's going to be let back in as a working royal. I really don't. And certainly not when his brother is on the throne. But even now, I don't think that's going to happen. But if he left Meghan, and ironically enough, if the divorce is messy, it's going to play well in his favour with people in this country. The Brits love an underdog. It is one of our great virtues as a nationality. We love an underdog. Diana played upon it. Harry and Meghan have tried to play upon it, except nobody's thought that they were an underdog. Maybe at first a few people, but since then, no. Everybody knows he's not an underdog. Everybody knows she's not an underdog. Everybody knows she is a rabid dog. And he is an overdog. So, do I think he will come back? I don't make predictions. Do I think they'll get divorced? I don't make predictions. I'm not prepared to predict. I'm not surprised that the word in certain circles is that he is ready to just walk away because he realizes that she is destroying his life. But it's not going to be that easy to walk away. There are 2 children involved. His children. That matters. I think the less afraid he is of her, and he's terrified of her, is the more chance he has of having a life that's worth living. Let me put it that way. Rosa Angus says, "Hello there, Lady C. Hello. I do enjoy your very informative videos. Thank you. I have seen somewhere that Meghan was very broke when she came to England and met Harry. I wonder if that was true, and did the family know this? Anyway, thank you, and best wishes from the South Coast." Meghan didn't have any money. I think Meghan was on 50,000 an episode. I mean, that's chicken feed. I've got news for you. If you're living the lifestyle she wanted to live, and she was plowing back a lot of money into keeping herself visible and relevant and PRs, etc., etc. Gina Nelthorpe Cowan managed to get her 102 deals, but Meghan has always spent money on investing in herself so that she would end up being more famous, more established, better off. And it's not worked. It didn't work it worked in a way, actually. I was going to say it didn't work before marriage, but it did work before marriage because she managed to bag Harry. And she was determined to bag a well-placed Englishman. Remember what Lizzie Cundy said? And Lizzie Cundy is just one of many who Meghan approached trying to get herself a grand man and a rich man. So she didn't have any money. And she has said, or it is attributed to her, let me rephrase that she was worth $5 million when she married Harry. She didn't even own a house. She didn't own any decent jewelry. She was wasting money on clothes and shoes. And believe me, unless you manage to get them through the designers at a knockdown price, it's a waste of money unless you have a great deal of money. So, she didn't have any money. Figure it out. How many episodes per annum were there? She had to live. As I said, she couldn't even buy a house. She had no money to speak of. No artwork, no really good jewelry. I mean, what was she spending the money on? As I said, investing in herself, investing in the future, trying to go from being a third-rate starlet into a first-rate wife. And she struck gold and managed to throw it overboard. How resourceful is that? She thought she was going to end up making them into billionaires, and it hasn't worked. If after all this palaver and all the grief that they have caused to others, and it has to be to themselves as well, because they cannot be unaffected by what they have done to others and to themselves as a result of it. What do they have to show for it? A few paltry $1 million? How far is that going to go? Elon Musk, watch out. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in, and I will be delighted to address anything that you would like me to address on your behalf, as long, of course, as I'm able to do so. Thank you so much. Godspeed. Bye-bye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.